Is Keir Starmer getting too cosy with Donald Trump? I want your calls right now. The two world leaders met yesterday at Trump's golf resort in South Ayrshire. They spoke positively about the special relationship and hinted at further engagements.
Fantastic to be here. Thank you for your hospitality and to see this amazing golf course. I'll invite you to a football ground at some stage and we can exchange sports.
And you've done a fantastic job with regard to the trade deal. You know, they wanted a trade deal here for years, many years. You got it done, so I want to congratulate you on that. And it's a great deal for both. It brings unity. We didn't need unity, but it brings us even closer together.
Yeah, all very friendly. There were some moments of contention, though. Gaza was high on the agenda.
Disaster. It's a very ugly energy, and we won't allow it in the United States.
So we believe in a mix, and obviously oil and gas is going to be with us for a very long time.
Yeah, as you can tell, they were there talking about wind energy and wind turbines. This is what they said about Gaza.
Mr. President, Prime Minister Netanyahu said there's no starvation in Gaza. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't know. I mean, based on television, I would say not particularly, because those children look very hungry, but we're giving a lot of money and a lot of food, and other nations are now stepping up. I know that this nation is, right
It's
here.
a humanitarian crisis.
Right.
It's an absolute catastrophe.
Do you think it's
Nobody wants to see that, and I think people in Britain are revolted at seeing what they're seeing on their screens. So we've got to get to that ceasefire, and thank you, Mr. President, for leading on that, and also to just get more and more aid in.
And they disagreed on London's Mayor Sadiq Khan.
I think he's done a terrible job, the mayor of London, but a nasty person. I think
He's a friend of mine.
No, I think he's done a terrible job.
There has been a mixed reaction to the visit. Some say Starmer held his own, others say the pair were getting too cosy. James, it's not a special relationship if it's one-sided, if it almost looks like one party's bullying the other, is it?
I know that people like to criticise Keir Starmer, and I'm probably front of the queue for plenty of opportunity for that. But on this, I think he's doing the right thing. He's very clear about what he agrees with Donald Trump on. He's also clear where he disagrees. I think it is important that we have a good relationship with the United States, whoever is president of the day. And I think he's doing actually a pretty good job of making sure that that special relationship is alive, well and functioning. And that means that you can have conversations. It's very clear that they don't agree on everything. I was delighted when Trump decided to have a pop at our mayor, who I think is an appalling human being. But, you know, that's it.
Wow.
An appalling human being?
Yeah, I'm sorry, he's ruined Londoners' lives in so many different ways. I'm sure, he
hasn't ruined mine.
You could say he's doing a bad job, but to call him an appalling human being is
I just think that I just think that he has been wrong with the way that he's dealt with some very serious issues relating to London's cohesion, London's operation, and London's future. Okay. So whether I should use those words or whether I just say he's made some appalling decisions as mayor, fine. But I would agree with Trump. I think he's done a terrible job. But let's not get distracted by that. I think that Keir Starmer here is doing the right thing. Does he agree with Trump on everything? No. But I think it's important that we have a good relationship with the leader of the free world.
Is it a weird dynamic when the Prime Minister of the UK is being hosted in his own country in somebody else's golf club? Because it really felt like Trump was in charge there.
He was. And that's what, in a sense, this is what Keir Starmer needs to learn the lesson, that his policies, or the policies of his Chancellor, are turning away people like Donald Trump, people who have significant funds to invest, and they're making it more difficult for them to do so. So people like Donald Trump, who have a lot of money, I want to see more of them come to this country to invest, to create jobs, to push our economy, to create the wealth that we would like to see, to then pay for all the services that we would like to have. And I'm afraid that many of the policies on non-doms and various other things that they've picked up and clearly have no understanding of will mean that that investment doesn't come.
OK, there are clear differences there which seem to be being tolerated by Keir Starmer, but isn't there a geopolitical advantage? Just being completely pragmatic, there's an advantage to having somewhere where clearly the most powerful man in the world feels very at home, Jemma, feels at his ease.
I mean, what a world we're living in. So the most important thing at the moment, as far as I'm concerned, is the plight of those starving people. And so Keir Starmer absolutely, in so many regards, has to. He's in this situation where he has to play this diplomatic sort of tightrope game, and he has to appease this narcissistic bully who I think is an appalling human being. And this is the leader of the free world who currently has ICE agents who are masked with no ID, dragging people into vans, carting them off to goodness knows where. This is not somebody I admire or respect or want our country to emulate.
So do you
However,
not think that...
Can I just finish? However, Keir Starmer's thinking about the steel industry, thinking about the economy, and he is influencing in some way. That's one of the first times that Trump has acknowledged that people are being starved to death. So in that regard, he's sort of doing it. But it's pretty horrible to watch. He has to toady up to him because of the way the world works and because there is a massive power imbalance.
It's the first time I've seen Trump say about another leader that they have differences of opinion, but he's allowed to have his opinion. And I thought that was, you could read that two ways, couldn't you? You could say there will be differences of opinion. It won't change the relationship.
Yeah.
We can think different things, but still work together. That's got to be positive.
Yes, it is. And you can see that in the past, when we've spoken of special relationships, it tends to have been where there really has been cohesion between, like if you look at Reagan and Thatcher or, or Bush and Blair, that was sort of these sort of relationships. This is completely at odds. The men don't have that much in common at all.
Do they need to? Do they need to have a lot in common?
As
long as they both get what they need from the relationship.
Starmer is playing the sort of diplomatic, and I'm not a massive Starmer fan at all, trust me, but in regard to this, he does have to put the national interest first. But for us, and there is a majority, if you look at all polling, who find Trump repellent in many ways, to be sitting there and telling us that our mayor, who I do support, and I don't think he's an appalling human being at all, is like disgusting. What right does he have?
You just called him an appalling human being.
Yes, but he isn't.
So what gives you the right to do that?
Because he is American. I'm getting patriotic about our own. You don't come from another country and then
Sorry, that makes no sense. Well, no, but here's the other thing that makes sense.
Trump is a convicted felon, OK?
Yeah.
Sadiq Khan is not a convicted felon. So if you are to look at two people and measure them, you could be within your rights to say he's an appalling human being, particularly if you're a woman.
He's withholding
Sadiq
the
Khan
Epstein
does not
files.
qualify in anything like the same terms, does he?
There are lots of reasons why you can perhaps dislike them, and maybe this is our problem with politics, is that we cross the line with people that maybe we haven't met or we haven't spoken to or whatever it is, and then we come up with this conclusion about them, and then we confuse the conversations about...
Trump's a good human?
I don't necessarily... It doesn't matter whether I think he's a good human or not.
I'm asking you.
That's a good question. I think ultimately there are many things that he would like to see which are good for humanity. So he would like to see... Such as a strong American economy, such as a peaceful world.
Which his big, beautiful bill that he's just put through is literally going to wreck it.
Well, you say that, but then there are also things where, well, you do, but then, there are plenty of other things where, for example, his support, I think, of Israel has been extremely worthwhile and very important, and understanding that this is a very, very complicated situation and you stand by your allies.
It's not complicated anymore. I mean, I posted today, there's footage of aid trucks going back for miles and miles and miles with Israeli people celebrating the fact at the gates that they're not coming in. So he's let Netanyahu get away with impunity,
but he is
destroying it, and no doubt they're going to carve up the land for themselves.
It's a terrible situation.
But it is a terrible situation.
People need to be fed first before anything else happens.
And I think that's Starmer's influence.
OK, so that's a good thing. That coziness is giving us a result. He's not promised anything, though.
But I find it extraordinary that in our discourse in this country, we've stopped referring to Hamas as a terrorist organisation, which it is.
No, we haven't.
Well, certain news organisations have. And I think that that's very important, that we still need to understand the context as to why this is going on, and indeed why it is that we have our allies and what we need to do in order to...
James, it's gone far, far, far beyond that now. It's gone far beyond that. This, for Netanyahu, forgive me, this is not about Hamas. Like, he's obliterated the whole region.
Okay.
They've got diggers in there to carve it up and sell it off.
And still they have not surrendered.
It's the first time I've heard him mentioned as a humanitarian crisis.
And
if that coziness brings out that kind of concession, isn't that worth having that tight relationship and taking the hit of how you might feel about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I think...
So you agree with me?
I think,
almost.
yeah, I think things.
But I think
nuanced
that's important though, because you and I may or may not agree about lots of things. That's fine. But I think what these two have demonstrated is that you don't have to agree on everything, and they've found that there are things that they both wish to see. And it's interesting that Trump is offering his help or otherwise to say this is what you've got to do to improve your polls. I think Keir Starmer will ignore all of it at his peril. Well, you say that, but lower taxes and deal with immigration and deal with law and order.
Deal with immigration. Would you want vans going around in this country? Can I say, as a woman or any human, for me, what I'm seeing with ICE, where they're going, can I see some ID? And they are dragging people, making loads of mistakes. Well, people who are there
you just
legally,
connected two
due
things.
diligence. That's
But do I
because
think
that's
that's
his
the
idea of dealing with immigration.
Well,
I do not want to emulate that in this country.
I don't want to emulate that.
Alcatraz type
But are you
prison
telling
with
me that-
alligators around
Are
it.
you telling me that you don't want to deal with immigration?
Listen,
No, I don't
Billy,
want to deal with
Billy is at the
immigration
eye
in
of
the
the
way that
storm.
Trump is.
Billy is at the eye of the storm. He's in South Ayrshire itself, where all this supposed coziness took place. How did you feel about that, Billy, watching that taking place on your doorstep?
Morning, Matt.
Morning.
Unfortunately, I do not actually live in Tunbury itself, but I have been hearing about every detail of the visit. Personally speaking, I don't understand why this whole thing has taken place, because I don't think Trump has any right to be in the UK or Scotland. Yes, he's opened up a golf course in Aberdeen, but he's got absolutely nothing to do with the UK. He is the President of the United States. Yes, he's meeting Keir Starmer. I totally understand that 100%. But why is he in Scotland just
Billy,
to open up a golf course?
If it means that Keir Starmer has the chance to bend his ear to get us a better deal on tariffs, to maybe get some aid into Gaza, and any of the other issues that Keir Starmer's got on his to-do list, isn't it worth taking that opportunity?
Well, now that you say that, yeah, and I wish him all the luck in the world. But all we can do is just sit and cross our fingers and hope and pray that he manages to work something out.
OK. And he's coming back in September, so he can have another crack then. Not to South Ayrshire, though.
I know he's coming back, but I don't think it's South Ayrshire. I might be wrong, though.
OK.
Some of the Scottish protest signs have been amazing. One woman was holding one up saying, "You were rubbish in Home Alone too."
Yes. Maybe missing the point. But if that's the best they've got, what I worry about this, James, is that what Donald Trump says this week on Gaza, and none of it was committal, was it? There was no numbers there. There was no forcing trucks through the barriers, through the boundaries. What he says this week might be completely different next week. He might take a completely different point of view. He might be having a crack at Keir Starmer, for all we know.
He might. And that's the way he operates. He is a very unpredictable politician. I think many of us find some of the things that he says and how he phrases it either peculiar or difficult to perhaps understand. Incoherent, maybe. Having said that, it is very important. He has a very strong relationship with Netanyahu and indeed with the Israeli government, which I think is important. And just because you have that conversation with them, it doesn't mean that you necessarily agree with everything that they do by any stretch of the imagination. I am pleased that he has recognised that there is a humanitarian crisis, which increases the urgency to get something sorted out. Having said that, he is going to have to get the Israelis to agree to what they plan. And this whole idea, when people say, well, we must have a two-state solution, and Hamas don't want that either. So when you talk about imposing, these solutions that we think are going to provide the peace, you actually have to involve the people on the ground to do it.
Can you imagine it? I mean, Hamas are a terrorist organisation, but at this stage, so are the IDF, because there are people in food lines, and there's plenty of footage of this, and they are shooting them. Imagine if Hamas did that.
I think I don't condone some of the actions of the IDF at all.
Because you're a human being. Like it's beyond.
I want to focus on what we're getting from this relationship and what we're getting from this meeting here, because I Unless I'm missing the point here, Gemma, was there some kind of commitment from this that came out of this?
No, it was very
Or are we
woolly.
still dealing in nebulous?
We're relying on sort of soft influence, on sort of like the ego goes away and thinks, yeah, because does he care? No, because he has let Netanyahu get away with war crime after war crime after, I mean, you know, there's thousands of them now. Who knows? The real figure of people
Yeah, but
dead?
you're conflating stuff that you shouldn't conflate because you don't necessarily know the detail. And I think that is the problem here. That
What bit?
You have to take what Trump is saying, I think at this stage at face value. He wants to deal with what's happening in Ukraine. He wants to deal with
But how effective has he been? But when he came into power, he said, I'll get the war in Ukraine sorted out 24 hours.
Sure, he said that, which is intention. Sometimes things are more difficult to do.
Let's take another call. Martin's in South Yorkshire. Is it too cosy, Martin? Do you think that Keir Starmer's being used as a bit of a puppet here?
Well, yeah, I think, like I said to your your phone screener, it reminded me of that scene in Love Actually when Hugh Grant is talking to the guy that's the US president. The US president says, I will give you everything you want unless it's something I don't want to give.
Okay. Well,
and that's Trump.
That's the way you think it's working. Well, maybe it takes a Hugh Grant character to stick up to him in a scene like this one, Martin. I'm going to warn you that there are flashing images. Here we go.
We may be a small country, but we're a great one too. Country of Shakespeare, Churchill, the Beatles, Sean Connery, Harry Potter. David Beckham's right foot. David Beckham's left foot, come to that. And a friend who bullies us is no longer a friend. And since bullies only respond to strength, from now onward, I will be prepared to be much stronger. And the president should be prepared for that.